They always want to pick the hardest thing to automate. How about we figure out how to put a knob on that thing over there? You have 3 women putting knobs over there. Let's automate that. That's super easy. If you start off hard, it's not going to be successful. People are getting frustrated. You're going to put that robot in the corner.
Hello, I'm Ed Marsh, host of the Industrial Growth Institute podcast, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this conversation. Today, we're visiting with Jean Rabatin. Jean is a manager of partner business development with Yaskawa Motorman, where she's been for the most recent 2 years of her 22-year career in automation. We're going to hear a lot from her through this conversation, but I got a note right out of the box that she believes she was probably genetically destined to sell robots. And proof of that fact is the fact that her name Rabatin is derived through a Slavic variant of the Hungarian word robotos, which is an occupational name for a serf or someone basically doing compulsory physical labor all the time. So essentially a robot. But Jean's career really maps to a lot of the interesting topics that we cover in this podcast. She started her career in industrial sales selling metal, 10 years in inside sales and a few years of field sales. And then she jumped into automation with ATI Industrial, where she worked with Bob Little and managed really half the country as her territory. Then kind of using, if we're going to talk about it in robot industry terms, she moved to Team Orange and became a sales director for Kuka robots, running a team of 6 reps. Then selling custom automation directly to end users for Calvary Robotics, but found that she kind of missed that channel partner and system integrator world. So she went back to that and now is selling for Team Blue on the Yaskawa side, again, through integrators and distributors. I actually met Jean and her former boss from ATI, Bob, through Dan Alford, who is a super connector of everybody in the robotics and industrial manufacturing and automation world. So as we get ready to welcome Jean, please give the episode a like or a share, drop a comment. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so now. And with that, welcome, Jean. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I know that you're not necessarily an enthusiastic participant in podcast. Dan dragged you into his. You're starting to build that muscle, and I'm grateful for your willingness to to flex a little bit and try this with me.
Yeah, Dan's the ultimate persuader for sure.
There you go. So you are just coming off, I think, your first partner conference with Yaskawa.
Yeah.
Live events are a really interesting topic. After COVID, it elicits very strong reactions. Why did you decide to launch this event?
So let's see. In the past, Yaskawa's had what we call a partner event at our facility in Miamisburg, Ohio. And that was mostly a technical event, right? So we would have a lot of engineers and apps people coming, and we would tell them about the latest and greatest, newest stuff about Yaskawa. And I think that upper management just thought there was some value in having an off-site, more of a commercial type of event. So we started kind of going down that path last summer. I know during my time at Kuka, we've done that a couple times. We hosted some really nice stuff, and it was always welcome to have it somewhere tropical.
Right.
So we kind of went down the path of let's do this sometime in the wintertime, have it in Florida. Our first picks was more like having maybe Miami area, and then that didn't work out. So we were going to Clearwater area. Then that got hit by a hurricane last fall. We weren't sure what that was going to look like this spring. So we ended up going down the street from where I live in Fort Myers, had a great resort. We had a lot of Yaskawa people. We brought, the president, the vice president of sales, and the CFO, just a lot of the upper management so that our partners would know who we are,
Sure.
From the top level down. And then we invited mostly your upper level management of our partners. We only kept it at 100 attendees. We didn't want it to be 700. We just wanted to be a select crowd and make it more personal.
we're going to come back to this theme several times during this conversation, but I want to hone in on what you said, that it traditionally was a very technical event, bits and bytes or details and features and technical attributes and that kind of thing. But the idea was to embrace the commercial aspect of the conversation.
Yep.
Talk a little bit more about why you thought that was important and how you went about planning for that conversation, because folks in companies like yours typically do default to just speaking about the technical details.
Yep. Interesting enough. So, we go to market through distribution and integration. We also integrate a lot of welding cells. We have our own product that we go to market with for automating welding. And lots of the big companies that people know buy directly from us. And for the most part, I think our partners understand that, but there's still probably some out there that think that we're their competition. So we want to acknowledge that, or at least explain where we're going on that market, and be upfront and honest about it. Really, we only do welding inside that we do full automation on. And funny enough, a lot of the partners that came to that buy our system and then do add-ons to it, right? So maybe they do some fixturing or some other add-ons or benefits to what we offer.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still room for excuse me, integration partners along with what we're selling with our automated welding systems. So that was a main focus of that. And then our next focus was really, we don't know that our partners really know who we are. We've never had this event. We want them to know who we are, and get to talk to all of management. So it was just a great event in that respect. And we kind of came out of the gate. We had Steve Barhorst, who's the president of Yaskawa, come straight out and just says, "Okay, let's address the elephant in the room. We compete with some of you, or so you think we do, but here's what we do." And we do nothing in handling, nothing in all these other industries that are out there besides welding. And we don't do all the welding. I mean, you would be surprised at how many welding awards we gave away last week at our event. So,
wow. Simply that question of many of our partners don't know who we are. I mean, that we just kind of gloss over that. We assume, well, geez,
yeah,
we've passed information back and forth. We've emailed, we've called, we've been on calls together for the last 5 years, but often we just take it for granted. And that's such a fundamental point.
absolutely. You got to figure our company has. So I work for a gentleman named Peter Tarbell. He heads up the partner team. The partner team is a little bit of partner support, right? So after you buy a robot from us and you're starting to program it, you're an integrator and you're starting to program it, and you have questions, you need some assistance. We have a direct line that those people call for us to help them support. We can walk them through it. If we need to be, we'll go out and visit their facility to make sure they're up and running. We also have kind of like an internal sales group, which we'll maybe put together a quote for you, give you budgetary numbers and that sort of thing. We have general managers. We have 3 general managers in the U.S. that cover the East, the Midwest, and the West, or we call it the Great Lakes. And then under those general managers are sales guys, right? And our sales girls too. So a lot of the customers or partners just know that team, right? They just know their
Right.
salesperson, and they might know their technical salesperson who kind of helps on the back end. But we're a lot deeper than that. So that was what we wanted to show.
And so much of particularly partner business gets built on the strength of the relationship.
Yep.
And companies go through these ROI calculations for every robot that you buy and sell, you're going to generate this much aftermarket business, and therefore over the years you're going to generate this much business. So you got to do business with us. But that's very sterile. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
people to people is so powerful. So it's interesting to hear about that. Do you plan to do it again?
Yeah, we sent out surveys, and I think we have about 50% of the people that attended filled out their survey. We sent it
Wow.
internally also, and actually tomorrow morning we're going to go through those surveys and see what the feedback is. I mean, just on the surface, just from the emails that I was receiving after the event, and really at the close of the event was just overwhelmingly positive. They thought that the information we gave was very informative, and so I don't know that we'll do it yearly, but every other year. I want it to be special. I don't want
Sure.
it to be a yearly. That's do this every single year. So
Right.
and because we're keeping it a small audience, who gets invited is who the next superstars are for the next 2 years, right?
Right.
So Yeah, I think we probably will, but I'll be curious to see what all these surveys say tomorrow when we review them.
Well, I'd say 50% response on surveys speaks very highly to it. And I
Yeah,
know watching your social media posts during the event, certainly you conveyed a lot of excitement, and I'm sure that you are drawing that from the attendees as well.
I think so. Yeah, it was just well attended. Everything, there's so many details in something like that, and I've never been a part of planning. When I worked at Kuka, I just showed up and did my part, but this
Right.
was a lot of my responsibility, and it just went off great, and we had
Gives
such
you
a
a lot
great
more appreciation for what's involved.
100%. We had I thought I was doing a good job doing all this planning, and then we involved our marketing department. Our head of our marketing is a young lady named Melissa Richter, and man, is she a detail queen! Like things that I would have never thought of, she did it. So we started holding a weekly meeting, starting back in December, and kind of going over the checklist of what we need and what she kept us in line, and I credit her with a lot of our success too because she knew all the details that I didn't even think about.
No, that's good. We're going to come back to the topic of marketing
Yeah.
in this context too. But speaking of in-person events, you also do a lot of trade shows.
Yes.
Um, what's the goal of those trade shows? I can't imagine there's that many integrators out there that don't know about you already. So when you go to a trade show, what are you hoping to get out of it?
So I think a couple things. My philosophy, and I don't know that so much Yaskawa's, but this goes back to my days at ATI. When I was at ATI, we did probably 8 to 10 trade shows a year. I mean, because
Well,
some of them were regional, right? And I had
right.
such a large region, from North Carolina or South Carolina down to Florida, all the way out to California, and a lot of
Wow.
states in the Midwest. So I would do these little regional shows, and I think those little ones are kind of good because not everybody, I agree with you. A lot of the big integrators know who Yaskawa is or who ATI is, but when you start doing those regional ones, it broke it down to maybe more of a regional type of customer.
Hmm.
But I think during that time, you're looking more for the end user too. And secondly, is it starts to say more about you if you're not there than if you are there. Um, when I was with ATI, we had 3 or 4 major competitors, and we were the only ones selling that product at a lot of these trade shows. So we
Really?
had the full audience. Um, but I think too, it just keeps you connected with your customers. When I go, I look at it as a networking event. I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm just catching up with all of our partners, looking for the new partners. Then our sales team there is looking for the next end user
Right.
opportunities. So it's multi leveled, I guess.
So when you go to the show, do you have specific KPIs that you're tracking when you come out of it?
Not so much me. Um, I think we're looking at leads, how many leads we got last time, how many converted to something, and that sort of thing. But that's not so much my background in there. But yeah, obviously you want more leads. We are
Sure.
doing a little bit of a different thing. We started kind of playing with this last year at Yaskawa, and that is typically the leads from these trade shows would go back to the region that the lead is coming from, right? So we would hand all those leads over to that salesperson. But what we were finding was that salespeople are salespeople, and they're going to want to keep every bit of that opportunity in their region to maximize their commission. I mean, I get it, right? I mean, that's how you're paid. Um, so they were maybe giving some of these leads to partners that weren't the best partner, but they were the local partner. And we realized that isn't the right way to go. So what we're starting to do now is those leads that come out of these trade shows are now actually property of Yaskawa, and the partner team and upper management goes through these leads, and we distribute them to the proper partner who we think is going to best, um, serve to get the sale right, and
Right.
to do a good job for the end user. Because at the end of the day, if you have a bad integrator putting in bad automation, a lot of people want to blame the robot. The robot sucks, right? So we want the right partner, for the right applications.
One of the things that I see almost across the board with industrial manufacturers, there's a lot of excitement going into trade shows and really very poor follow up on leads. I mean, I would say anecdotally, not more than 30% of trade show leads get consistently followed up on. How do you manage that to make sure, particularly because you're doing it a step removed, how do you know that your integrators and your channel partners are actually following up on the leads well?
That's kind of what one of my roles is. We will during the trade show we have a daily meeting, and in the morning we review yesterday's leads and we decide what partner these will be assigned to.
So while
Which,
you're at the show, you make that decision the very
yeah,
next morning.
yep,
Okay.
and for I would say probably for 60-70%, there's a handful that maybe doesn't have enough information, so we give it back to the salesperson and say follow up on this. Um, but we first start off with the partner, and we give them. I'll have a meeting with them, and I'll give them a spreadsheet if there's multiple leads, and kind of go through the details of what we know about these leads. Have them follow up, and within a couple days, maybe a week or so, I follow back up with them and say, "What do you need? What do we need to do? Where are these? How are these leads working out?"
Right.
For the most part, the good partners that we have, they will respond back to me every time they have a hit. Like, hey, I talked to this guy and it looks like a good lead and this is where we're going. Or I've called this guy 17 times and he's not returning my call or my emails,
Right.
so you know, at that point it's a dead lead.
Sure.
But you also have the salespeople where these leads are going to be registered right in their region who are also doing follow-ups. So kind of a couple levels, I guess, people, different ways of looking at how that lead's being followed up.
Got it.
My time at ATI, leads were our currency. I mean, again, when I started there in 2003, there was 35 people employed there. I was number 35. Over the years from 2003 to 2018, it grew to over 300 and some people.
Wow.
So it was huge growth, but it was an exciting time because we were getting, nobody knew who we were. We were at these trade shows, and every lead was valuable to us. So, I
Right.
mean, I remember personally following up on, I mean, there were some shows I would end up with 80, 90 leads in my territory that I would be pinging every single one of them. Um, and then plan sales trips around those leads, right?
Sure.
You got one guy who's interested in this, so you go plan a trip around him and you visit a half a dozen other people while you're there.
And a lot of that is obviously your work ethic and the way you approach, the challenge in front of you. I think also knowing about Bob and his background as an infantryman in the 82nd, my guess is that there was a culture of accountability and
Yeah.
hard work, and we're going to
Yeah.
get it done. We're going to do it, whatever it takes. And so it
Yeah.
was probably a really exciting environment to be in.
It was very exciting because just the growth was just so fun just to be part of that team, and when I started, I remember Bob sent me on a reconnaissance mission.
And everybody called it that.
Yeah, and I was in Texas visiting some customers, and he sent me to one of our competitors in the Dallas area to go take pictures of their parking lot to see how big they were, how many people were in
Wow.
that parking lot, that kind of thing. And of course, I had a flip phone at the time. You imagine what that camera looked like, right? And so it was kind of funny, but it was excitement throughout the company as far as I'm concerned that everybody was watching that grow, and it got to be, how today when you're going to sneeze and you grab a tissue, you call it a Kleenex.
Right.
And that's what we turned the tool changers into. When people, by the time I left in 18, people would call it, you need an ATI. They
Wow.
could be talking about our competitor's tool changer, but it was called an ATI.
That's neat.
Yeah, so it was a great time to be a part of that growth.
So then let's go back before that, the beginning of your career. You started out selling metal. How did you
Yeah.
stumble into selling metal?
So I grew up in the Youngstown, Ohio area, and Youngstown, Ohio is where all the steel mills are, right? That's kind of where I graduated high school. I started working for a cold roll steel company. We did cold rolling and slitting. Um, that company was decentralizing sales, and I had to get a new job. And I had an opportunity down in North Carolina to work for a structural steel company, which was completely different than the cold roll coil type of
Right.
company. You know, it was learning a whole new market, right? Because at that time you're talking to steel fabricator companies, right? They're coming to you with blueprints that that they need to buy so many beams or
Right.
angles or what have you. So it's a different type of audience that I was dealing with in that. But I just found that I'm just more of an industrial person, I guess, and maybe it's my upbringing. My dad, he was also in the army during the Vietnam, and then when he got home, he started working for General Motors, and I think I was about 8 or 9 years old, where he thought it was important for me to learn the firing order of a big block Chevrolet, Um, so just stuff like that. I was always around him, and we had drag racing cars growing up. I was always out there handing him tools or torquing something down with him, and just that. I don't know, that background, I guess, has always kept me wanting to be more on an industrial side. I could never imagine myself selling beauty products or um, or clothing or something for women. It's just not my personality, I guess.
So that explains why you ended up in metal and in this
Yeah.
industrial career that you've had. But how about the decision to go into sales, particularly in kind of the male dominated industries? I would guess that there was not that many women in
No.
sales roles.
No, I have to tell you, I'm going to owe that all to a VP of sales that I had at my first job at Cold Metal Products. At the time, I was in accounting, where girls were.
Right.
And one of my roles was in credit. And it was up to me to put people on credit hold if they weren't paying their bills. And the big agitators of that were always the big three automotive. It was always Ford. It was always GM. They weren't paying their invoices to us. And I would put them on hold. So sometimes the VP of sales would come over and he would kind of say, okay, we need to talk. This is Ford. You can't stop shipment going to Ford. And so, but I'd get the ball rolling and anyways get things paid. So one day he says, can you come to my office, please? And so I said, oh Lord, who did I make mad today? So I went to his office and he said, I was just at such and such company and we had lots of great discussions and your name came up. And I said, okay. And he said, well, they know you, the girl who collects money, and they had nothing but positive things to say about you, but they didn't know who their salesperson was.
Wow.
He says, you're in the wrong role.
Wow.
And he said, would you be ever interested in going into the sales role? So I started off in inside sales with him. And funny enough, I wrote him a letter about 5 years ago, thanking him for recognizing that I'm not an accounting type of person, that
How neat.
I'm a salesperson. So yeah.
That's neat. So if you're speaking to high school and college students right now, young women trying to figure out where they want to go or what they want to do, what advice would you give regarding sales?
Um, oh, that's a good question. I wouldn't discount any type of company. Again, girls, we typically have this on our mind. We're going to go into a girl field, right? Nursing or school, be a teacher or something like that. And there's a good handful of us women now in sales in the industrial thing. And I think we're successful because we are something different. And it's not because we're doing anything wrong or using our feminine powers. It's just that we're the shiny toy, right? We're something different than being a typical guy in the sales world. So one of my first sales calls with ATI, I went to visit another robot company, and the one gentleman who was an application engineer, we were all going to dinner, and he said, I'm going to remember you for a while. He goes, and I just thought, is this person hitting on me or something? It was so bizarre. And he goes, no, you're the only girl who's come to our office like in 8 years. Like, I'm going to remember who you are and what you sound because you're the only female that's come. And I was like,
Well,
I'll take it. I'll own it,
so if I had to guess, I would say it's probably easier to get meetings, but maybe back in the day, harder to actually close deals. Did you have a hard time? Did you feel like you had credibility? Did you have to work harder in your technical knowledge or anything?
Yeah, I do think so. And I had said this before to Bob Little when we were at different times when we were interviewing different people. And I think Bob recognized early on that he had a pretty successful sales staff that was probably 75% female.
Really?
And yeah, so we had a good thing going. And I just told him, you said, here's the deal. You can be a female, but you can't be a twit.
Right.
I said, you have to know what you're talking about and you have to earn that credibility. I mean, I had a couple, and honestly, in 22 years, I could tell you less than one handful of times where I had somebody who was disrespectful or maybe, didn't trust that I knew what I was doing. But for the most part, everybody was very respectful and understanding. But I had to know what I was talking about.
Sure.
And if I didn't know what I was talking about, I had to tell them, okay, I don't know the answer to that question. Let me get back to you.
Right.
Just own it. That's all. I mean, I'm not an engineer. This is all stuff that I had to learn over the years. I laughed just a couple of weeks ago. Somebody was, we were talking about something, and I said, I remember when I was interviewing with ATI, and Bob wanted me to come in and give his sales team a 10-minute presentation on one of their products, one of their tool changers. And he said, everything you need to know about us is on our website. And I'm going like, holy crap, how do you even do this? So I remember calling one of my old buddies from my steel company and saying, what does the word payload mean? I mean, I had no clue,
Right.
anything about automation. So, as long as there's a company out there willing to give people a chance, I think you can learn on the job more than you can learn in college.
Yeah, if people have natural curiosity, like
Yeah,
obviously you do.
true.
What prompted that move to automation? I mean, obviously you were in industrial, you were in
Yeah.
metal, but you wanted to do something different?
Yeah, it was kind of a toxic environment I was in when I was working for a steel company in North Carolina, and I was looking for. I can't say I was really looking for a way out, but we were, I was very overworked, and we needed help in our sales department in North Carolina. And I had given the manager down there a handful of resumes from people I worked with in Youngstown, Ohio, who would be like, "Yeah, let me move to Raleigh, North Carolina. That'd be great." He told me he was going to run an ad, and I looked in our local newspaper to see the ad, and there wasn't an ad, but there was this ad for this company at ATI who was looking for these automation. And I just read it. I thought, boy, that would be such a cool job. That would be
Wow.
such a cool job. And got my resume together, brought it to work the next day, put a stamp on it, walked out to the mailbox, and told God, okay, I have zero qualifications for what they're asking, but this is something I'm very interested in, so it's in your hands, God. And here we are 22 years later.
Wow. So when you went to ATI, were you selling directly or were you selling through channel?
Nope, directly. Everything was going through. I mean, my customers were anywhere from BMW, going straight to the car plant, to selling to the integrators who integrate to BMW. So anybody and everybody.
One of the interesting things about Bob is that he's built this huge LinkedIn following. It's nearly 25,000 people, and
Hmm.
he's kind of transitioned from being this technical product guy to a robotics and automation evangelist and futurist. So you left there in 2018. Had he begun that transformation at that point, or was that after his successful exit? Do you know what prompted him to over-index on LinkedIn the way that he did?
It was definitely after I left. When I left, for those first, I would say, 14 years of me working at TM, my boss was Bob. I would go to him directly with any questions, problems, issues, or good stories. And then we hired a sales director, and I think that freed up some of Bob's time. And then after, what I don't even know what year it was that they sold to Navanta, and I think after that, that's kind of when he probably transitioned more into being the guru of all things robotics.
Got it. So you didn't have an example of an early mover in social media as part of your sales
No,
training.
no, no,
I see.
absolutely not. No, Bob definitely evolved in that. When I met Bob, he's probably going to call me all kinds of names. He was not a social man. He was not comfortable in front of customers. He didn't like being at trade shows. It just was very awkward for him to engage.
Got
So
it.
yeah, he's definitely evolved over the years.
So when you first went to Kuka,
Hmm.
um, you didn't really have channel sales experience at that point. You'd had a lot of sales and automation experience, but all selling direct.
Yeah, that was so my role there was sales director. I had a handful of gentlemen that were reporting to me. It was definitely a big difference than what I was used to. But with that being said, I by this point I knew everybody in the industry. I knew all the integrators, had just relationships with all of them. So it was kind of an easy transition to do that. The exciting part about that was that I had a couple new and younger sales guys that were going to be on my team, and that was the fun part. I really enjoyed doing that mentoring and introducing them to people and kind of bringing them up in the industry. That was a lot of fun.
And how did you learn the channel part of it?
Um, well, actually, I worked with a couple. There was two other sales directors at the time, Peter Tarbell and Kevin Gavin, and they both kind of knew that. Peter Tarbell's my boss now.
Right.
Peter's been started off in the distribution world. That's where he kind of came up, and from machine tools and that kind of background. So he understands the distribution part of it, where that is still different for me. Integrators, I get it. Not only do I get it because of my time at ATI and Kuka, but then I went to an integrator. And so I get the whole system partner integrator aspect of it, but the whole distribution thing was definitely a learning curve for me, and still is. I mean, I feel like I've attained some of that information over the last couple of years with Yaskawa, but that's definitely Peter's sweet spot. He knows that industry well.
Yeah, I want to pull on that thread a little bit more in a moment. These different kinds of channel, but
Yeah.
first to your time at Calvary selling for an
Hmm.
integrator. I think you
Hmm.
said at one point that was the hardest sales job that you'd ever had, selling
Absolutely.
custom automation directly to end users.
Yeah.
Why was that so uniquely difficult, and how has that insight helped you coach your integrators to success?
Yeah. It's hard because number one, you're selling not just a piece of that puzzle, right? You're selling the whole. You're selling the solution, right? The whole puzzle put together.
I'd
Um,
argue you're selling the outcome.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's really hard to convey that to the end user, and there's a lot of trust in there, right? I will tell you that during my time at Calvary, it wasn't. I came across two or three end users that I'd sold to who had zero automation. And if they have zero automation, it was almost easier to sell to them. They were willing to trust you that you were going to be able to do what you say you are.
Right.
But there's a lot of end users out there who have bought bad automation and they're not trusting. And that was the hard part, right? Um, those relationships with your end user type of customers are a lot different. It's not a it doesn't feel as much of a partnership when I'm dealing with the integrator, right? My channel partners. I mean, the word partner is in there. We're a partner. I'm going to help you. We're going to get this sale together.
Right.
When you're going to the end user, it's kind of you know, you and you alone. But it's I don't know. It was a hard job, and I had some great successes, and I learned so much about it. I mean, I had a whole new respect for it after I left Calvary. You know, it just is. It's just a harder sale.
It definitely is hard. And it's also, people are people. It's interesting to me to hear Dan Alford talk about some of the relationships he's got both with
Yeah,
his robot suppliers, but also with some of the customers that he's had for years where they really do have a partnership. And maybe
yep,
it comes back to the fact that he typically, when he says he's going to do something, they do it and they do it well.
yeah. You know, and the other thing too, I'll be honest with you, I was only at Calvary for 3 years, and I started there. Funny enough, I resigned from Kuka on Friday the 13th of March 2020, and on Sunday the 15th of March of 2020 is when we were told the world's shutting down.
Right.
So I didn't meet my coworkers or any of my colleagues. I couldn't even go to Calvary's office
Wow.
for 6, 7 months. So I
Wow.
felt like that time. I mean, I was doing what I could to try to learn who everybody was at Calvary, what the processes are. Um, so that was kind of a hard time. And then it wasn't like in 6 months it was all over, right? We went another year or two
Sure.
with all that insanity.
Right.
I think if you have somebody like Dan Alford who has owned his company for all these years and has those companies who trust him, then he is he is very successful at that.
Right.
I didn't give it enough time. I was only there for 3 years, and had I stayed longer, then that might have been a different story.
Right. All right. So let's dig deeper into channel because
Hmm.
you've got a fairly complex channel arrangement. I'd say more complex than many industrial companies. You've got distribution, you've got integrators,
Hmm.
you may have some referral partners. What
Hmm.
other parts of the channel program do you have?
That's that's probably it for the most part. Is going to be the integrators, the distributors. Peter and we do dabble in what we call technology partners. So technology partner to us is going to be your ATI and your Shunk or your Vision companies. We're working on this thing right now with a company called Hypotherm, and Hypotherm has this new technology for cutting metal, and they bought Robot Master, so there's this whole thing that they're offering this package. So we're partnering with them, even though we're not going to an end user with them, but we're finding the right partners who would handle a product like that and making it right so our robot connects with their software and put it in the hands of the right integrator so that they could go to market and they know their customer best and who needs these cutting technologies, right?
So it's not even so much about something specific to go sell to somebody specific. It's much more about just building the ecosystem.
Yeah. Yep. There's other companies out there like finishing companies, right? There's a handful of companies out there that do polishing, finishing, cutting,
Right.
or deburring. So we have those type of partnerships with those companies, and a lot of the. And I will tell you, funny enough, that because of that growth at ATI, so many of my old coworkers are at all these different companies, and it just, that relationship never died, right? We all grew up in that thing. So, when I talk to these different companies like Push Corp or um, just a gripper company, it's funny to me how many of my old coworkers work at all these different companies. So that relationship is still going.
And how do you measure the return on some of these, I think you call them technology partnerships?
Well, I don't know that there's so much of a KPI or a measuring on it, but if we have enough interest with integrator partners who say like, yes, I want that, that's kind of our signal that, okay, we're going down the right path. Then this is something that's needed in the industry somewhere in manufacturing. And like I said, our partnership right now with Hypertherm, that's been a big one. We've been working on that for about a year, and we have a handful of technology partner, or of integrator partners who want to be a part of that, and it's been growing, and we feel really positive about it.
And are there specific plans for how large to grow it or different adjacencies to move into, or is it just kind of a very ad hoc and organic sort of a thing?
Kind of organic at this time. I think once we get a couple successes under our belt and know what we don't know, I think you could see some growth on that.
Could be an interesting element of your next in-person partner event. Bring some
Yeah.
of those people in.
We did. So we had um, in a mix with the internal people who spoke at our event, we had Alex Shakani from the A3 come and speak about the latest and what's going on in the robot industry. We did have Hypertherm speak. Um, who else did we have speak? We had a company that does some um, robot management systems, right? You might have a bunch of robots in your factory, and this is kind of like one of those softwares that kind of maintains or monitors each robot. Uh, I know I'm forgetting some people. Oh, we had Plus One, which does logistics and warehouse parcel induction type of systems. So we had a couple of those type of partners come in, and not so much sell what there's, I guess, introduce what they're selling, but talk about their market.
Yeah, sure. And is there any sort of informal or formal mechanism by which you share information on shared accounts or help make introductions to each other's
100%.
accounts or anything?
100%. Yeah. I mean, we're trying to get these products out to the integrators, but we want to make sure it's ease of use, right? We want to make sure that our partners know how to plug and play, I guess you say,
Right.
and go from there. So absolutely, we'll help them, support them, introduce them to the right people, and if they want us to go in with them all day long, we'll help them do that.
One of the neat things about that stuff is that often that actually creates new ways to get into an account. So
Yeah,
even if you've been struggling to get into an account for a while and you're not sure they're ready to buy whatever you sell,
yeah,
if you can be a resource and say, "Hey, I thought you'd be interested in this. Do you mind if I introduce you to this person? Maybe there's some value." Then suddenly you're contributing value and not even trying to sell something.
yeah, 100%, 100%. That one of the things that Hypotherm has been telling us for a while is the need for automation in building pressure vessels. Like um, air compressor tanks, stuff like that,
Right,
and
right.
even larger, and how hard that is. Right now, it's all manual, and it's hard to automate because they're cutting these products, and then if they're not, it's hand cut, right, with a torch, and if they're not done well, then it's hard to automate that, right, and weld it. So they think there's huge growth potential with these pressure vessel companies, and they're all over the world. Pressure. I
Sure.
mean, you think of all the industries that have some type of a pressure vessel.
Right. How do you avoid channel conflict? You talked about how you've changed the way you distribute trade show leads so that it's not just a direct channel that gets
Yep.
them. But if you've got direct distribution and integrator, when that team gets together that next morning at the trade show, or when you get a lead in off your website or somebody calls in, how do you how do you manage that conflict? And then when you've got two different channels that happen to be working on the same thing, how do you manage that?
So we try to give the lead to one partner, and and only one partner, and lead with them with that. I don't want to give this out to a half dozen people.
Right.
But the reality is, and I know this from my time at Calvary, the end user isn't just going to get one quote.
Right.
They're going to get three, four, five quotes. So if they want to be introduced to three, four, or five of my partners, I'll do it all day long, because I'd rather be introduced to my partner than having them go to other robot companies and use a different robot, right? So and I think for the most part, integrators understand that. I mean, you're not everybody's like Dan Alford, where they get a company who just goes back to them and gets, just keeps buying reorders.
Right.
So I haven't had too much of a problem with that. Now, when it comes to distribution, we don't hand them leads. Our thought process on distributors are that we want you to go to the end users. Like, we want you to go to those places that we don't have feet on the, boots on the ground to go into, right? They're going into smaller places, or maybe places in regions that we don't have anybody.
Okay.
So we don't give them leads. They come to us with their leads.
I see.
Yeah.
All right. Then the flip side is most integrators, I think, sell most robot lines.
Yeah.
That's my impression. I don't know if that's correct. Am I on the right track?
You know what? The big yellow elephant in the room is there, right? And they have a lot of partners who are exclusive to them.
Okay.
We don't ask or demand for exclusivity with anybody, because we think that's, a little bit selfish. You know what I mean? Like, you just eliminate a lot of customers because you won't even entertain using another robot brand.
Right.
But when we bring on a new partner, we ask that you lead with us and prefer us. And that's the best we could do. We understand if you're going to have a couple other robot companies, but I'm seeing the most successful integrators out there do have relationships with a couple different robot companies, or they will be well versed in all the different robot companies, because at the end of the day, you have plants that just are standardized on certain robots. And if you can say that I'm not using that robot, then you just lost that sale, right? In the last 2 years, I was kind of shocked at some of the integrator partners that we have that came to me, and it's again because of past relationships, who said, "Okay, we've been exclusive yellow, and we don't want to be that anymore. So let's talk." So it's made my job a lot easier, just having those old relationships. They knew who to call at Yaskawa, and it's been a lot of help.
Now, I'm sure that you would cringe and school me on the technical end of things, but from my perspective, let's just assume that all robots are essentially the same for kind of from the integrated perspective. If they're good, they can make any machine basically do what they want it to do. So then your job is not to so much talk about Yaskawa as much as to differentiate the company based on the way you support them, I would think.
Bingo, bango, 100%. I'm kind of with you. I mean, if you were to talk to some of our engineers, I'm sure they would look at me cross-eyed. How dare you? But there are some things that we do that we think are better, and on the technical side, and I'm sure others think they do it better too. I know my time during Calvary, there was, depending on the application, depending on what robot brand we were using, and they used really everybody. But 100%, when I was interviewing with Yaskawa, and again, I knew Peter Tarbell from our days at Kuka, and I said, "All right, Peter, we worked for a company that was German, but got bought by the Chinese, and it got to be real weird there. What's different between Kuka and Yaskawa?" And he said, "I've worked at a lot of places," and I call Peter. If he hears this, he'll laugh. I tell him he's a robot whore. Peter has worked for Denso, Staubli, Kuka, and now Yaskawa. He has worked for more robot companies than anybody I know. And he says, "Well, I think I could speak because I'm experienced at all these different robot companies." He goes, "But what we offer is our culture of support." And I said, "Okay, tell me what that means." He says, "Well, when we worked at Kuka, what it was like to get support. If somebody would call in for support, the first question on the desk would be, 'What's your credit card number?'" And we don't do that. So if you're a partner of us, we have a partner team. When you dial into Kuka's 800 number, the first thing is, do you need support? Press 1 or 2, or press 1. And are you a partner? Press 1. And that goes directly to our partner team. There are people who are just there to answer partner questions, and then we have the other 800 number that is for anybody and everybody.
Sure.
But I do think that we do have that culture of support.
So you're operating at a high level. How often do you actually dig into the mechanics of specific projects and opportunities? Are you making end user calls with your integrators, or are you just kind of standing back and coordinating?
Kind of standing back and coordinating. I've been involved in a couple, but mostly because, again, in my past relationships, somebody will get me involved, and I'll find the right partner, get them involved, and if it warrants going with them, I will. But for the most part, I hand them off to the right people.
And how about technology to track training and certification and leads and market development funds? Do you all have you used a PRM, a partner relationship management system for that, or do you do it some
No,
other way?
no, we don't. There's some of the people within our partner team track some of that. We get like a monthly email that's telling us which partners are calling in the most or emailing in the most, right? To track it monthly.
Right.
And it's kind of twofold. It tells us who we're hearing from the most, right? But then we can look at some of these projects and say, oh, well, yeah, they just bought a dozen robots. Of course, they're calling in a lot. They have a big project.
Right.
Or we could say, why are they calling in so much? They haven't bought a robot in 6 months. Stuff like that. So we kind of track it in that respect. It also helps us learn that maybe this company is integrating something and they don't have the training they should have had.
Mm-hmm.
We feel like we're becoming their inside integration team, and we
Right.
don't want to become that. We want to support you, but we're not going to integrate it for you. So that will spark conversations that maybe Peter and I have to have with the partner, saying, okay, you guys are kind of bothering the crap out of us, and we feel like your team might need some inside, training, and maybe it's time to start talking about some opportunities for that.
Good. How about an ideal partner profile? When somebody approaches you, do you have a formally defined
We do. Yeah,
profile?
I actually I wrote it down so I didn't skip any of the things. So I'm going to put my glasses on so I can read it. But so we have a couple things with the distributor. When a distributor wants to come on board, and there's a lot of distributors who will ping us and want to come in. So we have those calls, and I appreciate the call with the distributor. But the big thing is that you, how did we work this? Yeah, you have to make Yaskawa a preferred partner.
Okay.
If you have another robot brand, um, you have to prefer us over the other brand. And some people maybe want to have us for the industrial side and use another company for collaborative robots. So they won't ever sell our collaborative robot, but it is what it is. They need to have inside resources, right? They need to know, they need to have the robot pro on the inside. Again,
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to do your integration. We just want
Right.
to support you, but you have to learn our stuff. And you have to call on end users. You can't be calling on integrators. We already do that. We already know who all the integrators are. And so you'll have some of these, distributors want to come in and go call on all the customers that we're already calling on. So it makes no sense. We don't need you
Right.
to do that. And then we say that you have to have a value add. And what we mean by that is, I don't want you just to go out with the line card and saying, oh, look, we have robots too. You got to have some kind of value add. You have to say that you could do a simulation for these companies, right? Well, we could do a quick simulation to show you what it would look like. Or you could develop your own integrator partner that we're not part of, right? And go that route. So there's got to be some type of value add to that. So that's how we go to market with the distributors. When it comes to a rating system, we kind of have an ABC scorecard that we have for all of our partners. It mostly applies to integrators, but your the first letter of the ABC would be, do you buy more than 20 robots a year? And it could be
Right.
any color robot, but do you buy over 20? I mean, if you're a company that's only buying 5 robots from 5 different companies a year, then you're not going to be an A
Sure.
for us, right? B is, do you purchase from us at a repetitive rate, meaning twice or 3 times a year? And we want you to be at least twice a year because we want you to have that knowledge, right? Whatever you learned from the last time, and we don't again want to keep retraining you and re-supporting you on these. We want you to know what you're doing. So we feel like if you're only buying a robot from us every couple of years, you're going to lose that
Yeah, it's
knowledge.
perishable.
Exactly. And then 3 is, can you support what you sold, right? Can you integrate it? So those are big things to us. It really is about support, and it's never a numbers thing. I don't give anybody an A because they bought 150 robots from us. That's not what that's about. It's about being able to support the stuff that you buy from us.
And do you have a matrix for geography or vertical industry focus or other factors that figure into it as well?
Not that I'm aware of. It
No?
might be something more high level than what I'm involved in, but I don't have that.
Okay. And then, so that's for selection to make sure they're a good fit. How about the
Yeah.
onboarding? It's easy if somebody has a project
Yep.
and the end user said, hey, we want you to use Motoman. And so they
Yep.
come to you. But once you get past that initial lull and that initial project, how do you keep momentum, or how do you build momentum?
Yep. So funny enough, we have a really unique program we call the TOPS program. And what that does is it's for any integrator that is coming on board. We have a special training session we do for them, and it's no charge to our partners. It's not like they come, because we have two different types of training, right? You have the Yaskawa Academy, where you come to our facility and you do a 3, 4, 5 day training on a specific thing. It could be programming 1, programming 2, or learning something about welding, or coming in for collaborative, whatever. There's specific classes, and with that, you're going to get a certificate saying that you did this, and it's got all of its certificate things that go with it, right? Accreditations.
Okay.
But the TOPS program is something that we do within our partner team. And what's great about that is we send out a little survey to your guys who are going to be programming the robot. They might be well versed in how to program a yellow robot, an orange robot, and we want to know what they already know, because then we have a class that's only going to be about 3 to 6 people big. And we'll say, okay, you know that this robot does it this way, we do it this way. And that way you're not wasting 5 days of a class. That's about a day and a half to two-day class, right? Day and a half of teaching and showing how this works, and then maybe a Q&A afterwards, or, sit down with a specific application afterwards.
And
so that's been really beneficial.
You require new partners to attend the training?
We don't. We offer to them, it's free, right? They could come to our facility for free, or we'll go see them for a cost, right? We're going to pay for our travel.
Right.
We have a team of I would say there's about 6 or 7 guys that could do this training. We have a robot on a cart that we sit there and teach them, all these different aspects of it. But it's been very well received by our customers, right? That they're not just forced to go into if you have a guy who's been programming a yellow robot for 15 years, to send them to Yaskawa Academy, what a waste of time, right? He already knows what the red button means, stop,
Right.
But with that survey too, when we send them that survey with the questionnaire of saying, asking where their robot level is, that kind of, I'm sure we've gotten some of those back where we say, like, okay, you're not ready for TOPS programming, you do have to go to Yaskawa training. You have to go learn what the red button on the pendant means,
Sure.
So, but it's been a great training through, and because at the end of the day, nobody really has time or wants to spend 5 days in a class, right?
Right.
So it's been a great tool for us to bring on new partners.
So you spoke in terms of the event early in our conversation about how you wanted to cover commercial topics, not just technical topics.
Yep.
But experience tells me that the way a lot of this kind of machinery gets sold is very much based on technical features. The problem is the people selling it are selling to technical buyers who can make the vendor selection, but they don't make the business decision.
Yeah.
What do you do to help your integrator partners understand how to go higher in the organization, how to make the business case, how to find out about capital approvals, how to talk to all 10 members of the buying team, or all of those kinds of things to make sure the deals actually happen?
I can't say that I'm part of any of that. But I think when I think about some of our partners, those are the partners that I want to be partners with.
Sure.
The ones that already know how to go down that path and how to sell. And don't get me wrong, we have some partners that are a small company, and they do a phenomenal job. But I can't say that I have my hands on that very much. I would hope all of our partners know that, especially after we just had that event 2 weeks ago, that we're multi-leveled, right? Take your sales guy in with you. And if you need a general manager right from that region to go, or a VP of sales, like, let's have those talks. We're all available. So I hope all of our partners recognize that after we had our forum 2 weeks ago.
So actually team selling with your partners.
Yeah, I would hope so. That would be, I know my time at Calvary, that was a big deal, right? When you could go in, like, team selling, go in with the robot manufacturer or the company who had the technology we were going to be integrating for them, right?
Cool. Let's shift to marketing.
Okay.
In the industrial space, there's very traditional approaches, often trade shows and one-page brochures with lists and lists of technical details. I know recently you mentioned this new marketer that you brought in who actually came from a different industry background. So not only was she an expert in event planning, but what other approaches has she brought that have kind of brought a very different perspective or approach to the industrial marketing that you all have traditionally done?
Yeah. So she's had a couple great ideas. I mean, like you said, there's a lot of traditional stuff out there, and some of the traditional stuff we weren't even doing at Yaskawa, and she's kind of recognized that we were lacking in there. So she's picked up on some of that. And that goes as simple as, when one of our partners sends us a video of a system they're putting together, like let's co-market it, right? Let's both put it on our websites. Let's have some, let's have it both companies market it. She came from a pharmaceutical background, which is obviously very different from manufacturing. And I have to laugh because I don't know if you've been to one of our booths.
I have, yeah.
At some of the big trade shows, we have what we call the like the robot with it's a bar, right? It's a whole bar and it has two
beer bot?
Yeah, the beer bots.
Okay.
So that's a big draw, right? That line is always down the
Right.
hallway when the beer bot opens up. But she came up with this idea. Let's have a selfie station, and I think a lot of people at the company are like, that's pretty cheesy. But I can tell you, when she puts that thing on and it's parked next to the robot serving beer, you will have pretty much anybody come over and take a selfie with the robots serving beer in the background, holding your beer while you're at a trade show. And is it a gimmick? Maybe, I don't know. But it's another marketing ploy, right? All these pictures they can upload it to their social media pages.
Sure.
How many people get to say that they got served beer by a robot, right?
Right.
That's one of the things she's done. I'm trying to think of some of the other stuff she's come up with.
Now, how about co-marketing besides just the videos? Are there other examples of co-marketing?
So she actually had a really cute idea that she did during our partner forum. She was one of our last speakers for the event.
So you had the marketing person speak as a speaker at your partner. Oh, that's fabulous.
100%. And she wanted to talk about some of the things that we're doing and some of the things that she was offering to them. And one of them it was such a cute idea. She was talking about co-branding, and she's like, and here's an example. It says she had a table set off to the side, and she had, how there's that the graph paper that all the robot companies have that have the robot logo at the top.
Right.
She had that with our logo, and the customer, every single partner had the tablet with our logo and their logo on it. So it's like that kind of thing. She's like, this is going to be done all day long right in our facility. If you want something that has both of our logos on it, tell me. Like, we'll get it, we can print it in-house and get it out to you pretty quickly. So everybody that was there got to walk away with a couple tablets with both Yaskawa and their own company's logo on it, which was cute. She has some ideas like that, and always kind of surprising and just throwing things out there. During Automate, we are going to have an after-hours event. So if you're going to be at Automate on Tuesday evening, we're going to be at a place not walking distance from the arena, and it's going to be a 2-floor thing.
Wow.
We're having discussions about maybe having some co-partners with us, right? So maybe some of your the technology partners who want to co-join with us and be a part of this too. So all those kind of talks are happening now.
Cool. Completely shifting gears a little bit. Everyone's got a jam-packed schedule, and different folks have different ways to burn off stress and keep their mind clear. I know from conversation you do a weight workout every morning in the middle of the morning. What else do you do to try to keep yourself focused and keep a clear mind and manage the stress?
The big thing is that I leave Northeast Ohio, Western Pennsylvania every winter, and I come to Florida for the winter. That keeps me, I need my sunlight. I need to see the sun every day, and up in that part of the country, there's no sun.
So I thought you were in Florida year round. You're not?
No, I'm a snowbird. So obviously down here, we've taken up boating. We do boating a lot on the weekends. And of course, if you're in pickleball or Florida, you have to be in pickleball. So we play quite a bit of pickleball. Started off as kind of a thing in Pennsylvania with my church group, and then we just grew to love it. And then we came down to Pennsylvania or down to Florida, and there's pickleball courts right in our neighborhood, and we've made so many friends playing that. It's what I love about that sport is you could be 15 or 95, and I'm amazed at how good some of these. You definitely can't judge a book and pickleball, because I'm always shocked. I'll see somebody out there. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to take this one. And I'm like, holy cow, I just got my ass handed to me by an 80-year-old guy,
Right.
So it's pretty funny.
And I'm always fascinated by how people manage workflow. Are you a morning person or an evening person? When you have to have quiet to get stuff done, what time of day do you find is most effective?
I'm a morning person. I wake up pretty early. I typically go out on my lanai with my cup of tea and do a little bit of scripture, and then kind of ease into work. After dinner, I'm ready to put my pajamas on and go to bed. My bedtime is my favorite time of night. I just can't wait to go to bed. So definitely a morning person.
Got it. So I loved the conversation earlier about how you brought A3 and some of these other technology partners into
Yeah.
your event, how you're building that program. Obviously, there's a whole nother aspect of it. That's AI,
Hmm.
and the AI piece seems to be exploding. I saw Miller Welding recently partnered with some company called Novatech that's supposed to bring AI to all of the automated welding.
Yep.
What's your prediction on
Yep.
where AI is going in terms of robotics?
We actually had quite a bit of talk about that during our forum. I don't know what just happened to my light. Oh. So we see AI being in a couple different things, and we have a new product coming out probably later this year. It's called MotoMan Next, and that is something that and forgive me for not being technical because I am definitely not technical when it comes to this sort of stuff. But we've worked with
If I can just interrupt, I think that's perhaps the most important takeaway from this conversation, that you've had this career of success selling automation and helping channel sell automation, and you're not a terribly technical person. I'm thrilled to hear that.
no, it's true. I mean, I know how to talk the talk, right?
Of
But
course,
I also know where to not get too involved because I'm gonna look like an idiot. But
right.
so we partnered with NVIDIA, and we have some kind of their software that's going to be going into our next controller, and that's supposed to be released late this summer, early fall. And where we see some companies using that would be like in jigless welding, um, uh, the high mix, low volume. I mean, that's always been the way. We don't, right? Integrators run away from that. You want
Right.
the opposite of that. So we see some of that ease of use. That's the other big thing, right? Is making things easier to program, and we're doing that with some of our tablet um, programming, I guess you could say. Um, I don't know if you listened to the speech last evening with the joint session of Congress, but one of the big things that was touched on was shipbuilding in America. And funny enough, Dan Alford and I have talked about this so much. He is so involved in that. He's done several audits in the shipbuilding industry and has come
Right.
up with dozens of projects, And so in the middle of that, I texted Dan. I'm like, shipbuilding, going to need a lot of robots. And I see that. I see it also like in agriculture and in construction. There's just going to be some industries that we're not, that you've heard people playing in, right? You see them here and there, but I think they're going to become more of the norm. But definitely AI is going to be hitting on all those different industries.
And do you think AI is going to diminish the role of integrators?
No,
No.
no, I think it's just going to make integrators more powerful and need to understand that more. But no, I don't think it's going to just do anything different with the integrators at all.
Let's talk about competition. I'm always interested in how companies view their competition. At a
Mm-hmm.
high level, obviously, you've got, white, yellow, orange,
Yep,
whatever. But there's a lot of other competitors. There's the status quo.
yep.
There's outsourcing. There's temp labor. There's running a third shift. Um, how do you help coach your partners on selling against those competitors that they might not think of, particularly the status quo?
I have to tell you, one of the things, especially when we're talking to distributors, we tell them your customer base is the company who can't find people to work for them.
Right.
that that's the biggest growth. I mean, again, I've been doing this for 22 years, and I can tell you the first 15 of those years, whenever I would say to anybody not in our industry, I sell robots, and the response was, "Oh, you're one of those people that take jobs away from people," and I'm like, "No, not really. It's not. That's not accurate at all." Um, and then it's just funny in the last 4 years is finally you hear, "Oh, thank goodness that you're selling robots. We need those. We're not gonna be able to manufacture in this country if we don't have robots." So it's kind of funny how that whole narrative shift. But that's what we tell our distributors. Go find the companies who can't find people, and you can find that easier, right? Because they're gonna have the signs out in their front yard saying "Help
Right.
wanted." You
Right.
know.
Bob posted a graphic. I don't know. LinkedIn lately has been showing a lot more old posts. So I was going to say he posted this morning. I saw it this morning. I don't know when he posted it,
Yeah.
but it was like one of these time lapse graphics that showed the adoption of robots in China, where clearly they're not doing it for the cost of labor. They're doing for, consistency of production,
Yeah.
consistency of quality, all those other kinds of benefits.
Yeah. Alex Shakani from A3 just showed us some slides last week, and it's just like China is integrating 50% of the world's robots.
Wow.
I mean, the United States is like in 10th place
Right.
as far as robot integration. That's kind of sad. I
So
mean, when you think about this.
speaking of that, you're at an interesting spot to be able to watch these high level trends in reshoring and advanced
Hmm.
manufacturing and
Hmm.
automation. It's easy to kind of get excited about the latest shiny object, but as you look out 3 to 5 years, what's your view of the U.S. automation trends?
Oh, I think right now we're having a little bit of a flat time. The industry's a little bit flat, and I do see a bounce back coming. I can't predict things. Like I remember being in my first job at my steel company, and this one guy shows me this CD-ROM that he puts into a computer, and it's starts bing banging and all this stuff, and it's making this noise, and he's getting on the World Wide Web. I'm like, I don't get it. We have a telex machine. Why would we need the World Wide Web? So I'm a horrible judge at that. But I can tell you that over the years, I mean, when I started in automation, the main people that automated and bought robots and bought automation were automotive.
Right.
And then it's finally graduated to the other. And I think one of the slides that we just saw from Alex was that it's kind of even, and maybe even a little bit more of non-automotive accounts or applications over automotive. But you got to remember these last few years have been wonky, and everybody was talking EV, 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 and I never really could get it because I just didn't. And believe me, I think electric cars are cool and they fit a market and all that, but I didn't see them overtaking the world.
Right.
We think you had all these automotive companies who put everything on hold because they're like, we think we have to go with all battery. We don't know, but there's nobody's buying them, so we don't know, and I think that's finally turned, and I see automotive is probably going to start ramping up again and probably re-automating a lot of these plants and doing new technology in them. We just heard yesterday Honda's building a new plant in Indianapolis or Indiana, someplace, bringing it back from Mexico. So I think you're going to see a lot of that reshoring. But I do think automotive is always going to be there. They've been on
How
a big.
about broader adoption across all kinds of industrial manufacturing, though?
Well, I think the big one's going to be a lot with your. I mean, think about how we shop now. I haven't been. I go grocery shopping, but I haven't been to a store like a Walmart or anything in a long time because I just go on Amazon. It's like, yeah, I need some dishwasher fluid
Right.
and I need, some mascara. And so I order it and it gets shipped. So I just think that's where you're going to see a lot of big growth. The logistics and warehousing, it's just, the sky's the limit. I mean, I don't know anybody who doesn't use an Amazon or a Walmart or something like that to buy stuff, getting shipped to you, right?
Right. Yeah, I think I just ordered a single 3-ring binder on Amazon,
100%.
just to
I,
save 30 minutes driving to Staples.
my husband called me yesterday, said he was going to go to Sam's Club if I needed anything. I said, get me some of that stuff that goes in the dishwasher. He said, they don't have it. I said, okay, I'll get it on Amazon. So I have the finishing fluid for my dishwasher coming today from Amazon. Yeah.
So what does sales channel have to do to adapt to these bigger trends in automation? Anything, or do they just kind of keep doing what they're doing?
They keep doing what they're doing, but you're going to have new players come into this, right? You're not. You have a lot of the integrators out there that, and I want to say old, but that's not derogatory in any way. The older integrators who started off doing all these automation for automotive, and when automotive is dry, they have to shift or they're going to close, right? They have to go into some other industries maybe they didn't.
Well, same with
Uh,
Dan. He started in oil and gas.
Correct.
When that's in a downtrend, he's got to go do it somewhere else.
100%. So you got to be able to adapt to what the industry is doing. But you have so many of these startups and young people coming into this industry, and I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, Alex Yucchini showed a really cool video of bricks, a robot laying bricks for building homes, and I just see a trend doing stuff like that. And you got to have the people who want to go down that. A lot of us people who've been in automation for a long time, um, that's almost foreign to us.
Right.
But you're going to have a lot of the Gen X or the millennial, right? That generation, they're going to be interested in coming up with the newest and latest and coming up with ways to solve the problems that we have.
And it feels like AI may take a lot of
Yeah,
the science out of it. You may not have to know
100%,
how to hard code a robot. You may just say, hey, I
100%.
want you to give it verbal instructions and have it do it.
Yeah, we have this really cool demo for using AI with our robot, and it's in that new controller we have called for the Motoman Next, and it's kind of machine learning where it's filling totes, and you're not telling it to how to fill it, but it just recognizes this box compared to that box compared to that box, and
Right.
it refills it and empties it and starts all over again. So I do see. I mean, that's very generic and very dumbed down. I mean, if you could just imagine what that does, imagine what more could be done with it.
So, a couple different audiences listen to this. One is industrial manufacturers who may be thinking, geez, where else could I use
Mm-hmm.
automation in my process? And another is companies that build machines who may think about, geez, is automation a threat? How do I incorporate it? How do I adapt to it?
Mm-hmm.
What resources, you mentioned Alex and A3 a couple times, what other resources would you recommend people follow? Where do you go to kind of keep up to date on the latest and greatest in automation trends?
I have to tell you, I'm a member. I'm on the membership committee for the A3, so that's kind of where I get a lot of my information. I follow podcasts like yours, right? There's podcasts out there all the time, like you and Dan Alford has something, kind of seeing what the newest, latest, and greatest. But I would tell these companies who maybe have that fear or that unknown. I don't know a single integrator out there, or even a robot company, who wouldn't come out and do a free, what we call an automation audit, right? They'll come out and look around and say like yay or nay, like you ain't
Right.
got nothing. I did that so many times during my time at Calvary, and you go in and they always want to pick the hardest thing to automate. I'm like, how about we figure out how to put a knob on that thing over there? That's You have three women putting knobs over there. Let's automate that. That's super easy. If you start off hard, it's not going to be successful. People are going to get frustrated. You're going to put that robot in the corner. Let's start off with something easy. But all day long, there's integrators out there who will come in and do an automation audit for you to tell you, where some good possibilities are to start.
I think the most important step in industrial sales is often the factory walkthrough.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
So that's for automation. How about resources for people interested in best practices in channel management and how that's evolving?
I don't know. Um,
There's no great channel management
I don't.
guru or anything
No,
that you would
I
follow.
don't feel like there is. I mean, I feel like this is all like tribal knowledge. I'm learning from. I
So
mean,
maybe
I,
that's
I
your retirement plan. When you get out of automation, you become the channel management expert.
I had more of a pickleball champion tour person in my retirement days. Not doing that. Um, there's just a lot of people in this industry who've been around for a long time, and that's kind of where I've gotten all my knowledge. Where there's a lot of great people in there who kind of do consulting now that have been, part of different robot companies over the year, part of different integrations companies. So
Right. All right. For folks that want to connect with you, follow you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I'm on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to follow me. I'm not sure if you'll have my email address or my phone number listed, but that's always an option too.
Okay. I'll certainly put your LinkedIn profile
That'd be
in the
great.
show notes.
Yeah.
All right. So great conversation, Gene. Wrap us up now. Couple minutes to kind of recap our conversation. What you think companies need to understand about automation trends and how the role of channel management is changing as the markets evolve.
Well, that's a lot. That's a lot and a whole bunch of short questions. Let's see. I think there's a lot of AI stuff out there that's going to be changing the market. It's a buzzword, and I know and I have to admit, it kind of gets on my nerves when I hear the word AI 500 times over and over. But I do think there's a lot of great opportunities for AI to be involved in our industry. Um, for integrators, I think when you are quoting a project or you're looking at new projects and you're getting these multiple quotes, just really pay attention to what your integrators have and what they're offering. Um, there's a lot of integrators out there who have a long history of integration, and they will use their knowledge from maybe one industry to go to the next, and it's kind of amazing. Dan Alford talks about that a lot, how something he did for the oil and gas industry could be used for knee replacement surgery.
Right.
So he's always has that knowledge. So find somebody who's been in business a long time and has a lot of varying industries that they've been through.
So in other words, not just a special technique that they understand, but how to
Yeah,
achieve an outcome
yeah,
regardless of the
absolutely,
specific application.
absolutely.
Cool. Well, thank you, Gene, for your
Yeah,
time and for your insights.
yeah, it was great. Thank you so much.
And thanks to everyone for joining and listening and watching. Please hit the bell to like the episode, drop a comment, share it with a colleague, and for sure, please subscribe so you don't miss future episodes of the Industrial Growth Institute podcast.